Hello, friends. If you can hear me, feel free to unmute yourself for right now. And if you like, you can turn your video on. I'm going to do a little screen share here. Can everyone hear me okay? Hi, Jason. You're new to us. Welcome.
Yeah.
I'm
Hi.
so happy you're
Thank you.
here. How did you hear about us?
Yes. So Daniel was in the meeting,
Yes.
and yeah, he told me about this one, and I thought, I should give it a shot and try to join sometime. And it's also a good opportunity for me to connect with Daniel. So yeah.
Yay. Oh, Daniel, you're the best. Thanks for bringing your good people with you. Jason, it's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Yay, Kate. It's been entirely too long since I've seen you. Hi, honey. Are you back home?
Yeah, with chocolate in my mouth.
All right.
Hey, everybody.
So happy to have you back. And
Happy to be here.
iPhone 6, we don't know who you are, but you do not have to reveal. If you'd like to, you can just pop it in the chat box what we should call you. And I'm going to invite everybody to pull up their chat box real quick. And I'm going to put a little prompt for us to be thinking about while everybody else piles in. Oh, Maha, thank you so much. Perfect. Did I pronounce that correctly? Maha?
Yes, that was perfect.
Oh, wonderful. Great. Okay, so our just a little prompt to get us creatively thinking together. I'd like everybody to describe the scene you see out your window right now. If you don't have a window, imagine there's a window and what's on the other side of it. And I put that in the chat box as well. I'd like everybody to pop theirs into the chat box too. So go ahead and write it. All right. We've already got some great ones. Let's just go down the list. I'd love for each person to read theirs out loud. Kate, do you mind getting us started?
Sure.
Great.
Tulips nosing out from under a blanket of winter leaves.
Ooh, that's beautiful. Little note of springtime hope there. Gorgeous. Daniel, you want to read yours?
Uh, yeah, looking like I wrote the wrong word or autocorrected. So it's a gloomy midday, like rain. The three-person swing drips with water. The barren trees reach forth to the light for nourishment. It is still, it is quiet, it is home.
Oh, Daniel, that's beautiful. I love that repetition at the end. It really just brings it home. It is still, it is quiet, it is home. Thank you so much for sharing that. And Maha, would you like to read yours?
Yeah. So what I wrote is, right now I see cloudy skies with a light drizzle with tall palm trees in the background, a parking lot full of cars and people returning to their automobiles from church.
Great, thank you. A little bit of a cityscape in that one. I feel like a lot of the others don't have people in it. I like that you get to see people when you look out your window. Thank you. And Jason, would you like to read yours?
Yeah, sure. So it's already 8 o'clock here in the Netherlands. So I wrote down the city already sleeps, slowly defrosting snow on a rack of bicycles, subtly glistening under the streetlights.
Oh, thank you for taking me to the Netherlands. Beautiful, beautiful cityscape there. Thank you. All right, mine is a cold, wintry January day, gray light, the kind that would feel cold even if you didn't know what season it was. Bare trees hunkered down with knotted shoulders and a useless swimming pool. Yeah, so wherever we are, it feels like it's mostly wintry weather, right? Is there anybody, it's not winter where you are and I got that wrong? Okay. Well, we're all on the same seasonal page then. The poem that I chose for today reflects that to us. I try to choose things that feel temporally appropriate, although I know it's not going to be the same for everybody. But I was just feeling the kind of, I don't know, hunkered down hibernation kind of poem for today. And that's what we're going to look at together. So before we get started on our poem, I'd like to talk a little bit about narrative medicine because we've got two new folks here today. I'm so excited y'all are here. And I'm going to be lazy about it. And I'm going to ask one of our regulars, so that's you, Daniel or Kate, to tell us what narrative medicine is and how it's helpful for you. Putting you on the spot.
After you, Daniel.
All right. So for me, it always comes through, not always, very, very much so often a clinical lens in terms of how do we utilize, just our words and describing things and perhaps even allowing others to share in terms of chronic pain, right? When we're thinking about just that connection between people and how we're allowing them to be vulnerable and have a better understanding of who they are.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Yeah. Yeah, it's a very interior process of, helping people, figure out where, what their relationship is with their bodies themselves, with their healthcare practice, or with their own experience of healthcare. But it's also a very exterior community building practice too. For me, it's really a practice of listening. And in narrative medicine workshops, we hone this practice. We practice listening to each other, and we practice listening to works of art so that we can better listen to the conversations that unfold in the clinic or in our personal lives as well. Recently, I've been taking somebody through the bridge course. I'm doing, for those of you who've taken the bridge course with me before, it's usually 20 people or 15 people at a time. And I'm getting the real pleasure of doing it one-on-one now. And so I'm going through the course together and I'm revisiting my narrative medicine basics and falling back in love with it again. And I wanted to share just this wonderful sentence from Rita Sharon, who's kind of the grandmother of narrative medicine studies. She's the one who coined the term. She's a physician at Columbia University and or from Columbia University, and she also is a PhD who studies Henry James. So she's building bridges herself between the arts and medicine. She says, As a shift occurs from listening like a doctor to listening like a reader, myself shifts within my body and my consciousness. I roll my chair away from the computer. I let my hands sit in my lap. Instead of being on an edge of ignorance and challenge, I feel summoned by the patient. Is it her account? Is it her words? Is it her presence? Is it her action and having come to me because she thinks maybe something good will come of it? To what feels like a different self, my readerly self. I think it's the difference between being a judging outsider who's being put to the test to know what to do about a problem and being a welcoming receiver of its mystery, willing to sit within all its doubts. That's the kind of reader that we're going to practice becoming today, that welcoming receiver of mystery. And I think the poem we've chosen is perfectly attuned to that too. So as promised, we are going to be looking at a poem by Mary Oliver today, who's my own personal patron saint of poetry, often criticized for having overly simplistic work that's just all about nature and far too romantic. I love all of those things about her. Her work is deceptively simple, I think, especially in comparison with poems that have, lots of, big words or are straining for ideas beyond the material world that are more abstract, often very beautiful work. But for Mary Oliver, she really gets to that abstract, that beautiful thing beyond the world through the world itself. I've actually been reading Upstream lately by Mary Oliver, which I highly recommend if you need a good little winter read. Upstream is part memoir, part tutorial on writing. And in this, she talks about a very, very difficult childhood that she resolved by going out to nature. I'm sorry, I'm going to admit one more person to our class here today, and I'll welcome this person. Oh, oops. Pay no attention, pay no attention. Okay. All right, we've got one more person added. Alexandra, welcome. If you like, you can unmute and take off your video if you like, or you can keep it on, whatever you prefer. We were just talking a little bit about what narrative medicine is, which I'm going to skip for the moment, and a little bit about Mary Oliver, whose work we're looking at today. So welcome to the class. So yes, in Upstream, Mary Oliver talks about a very difficult childhood that she resolved in some way by getting out into the woods, going out into nature, finding a sense of meaning and spirituality, and dare I say God, through poetry and through the natural world. So we started off today by looking at our own natural worlds outside of our own houses, and we're going to look at a little bit of Mary Oliver's own natural world too. So Mary Oliver was an indefatigable guide to the natural world, wrote Maxine Cumin in the Women's Review of Books, particularly to its lesser known aspects. Oliver's poetry focused on the quiet occurrences of nature, industrious hummingbirds, egrets, motionless ponds, lean owls hunkering with their lamp eyes. Cumin also noticed that Oliver stands quite comfortably on the margins of things, on the line between earth and sky, the thin membrane that separates human from what we loosely call animal. Oliver's poetry won numerous awards, including a Pulitzer Prize, the National Book Award, and a Lannan Literary Award for Lifetime Achievement. Reviewing dream work for The Nation, critic Alicia Ostraker numbered Oliver among America's finest poets, as visionary as Ralph Waldo Emerson. And I would say Emerson is probably one of her patron saints of poetry too, pulling largely from the Romantics. Oliver and her partner Molly Malone Cook lived for most of their lives in Provincetown, Massachusetts, and the surrounding Cape Cod landscape has a marked influence on Oliver's work. She died just 5 years ago in 2019. Yeah. Any questions or interesting facts about Mary Oliver that you guys want to add in here? I know a lot of you are familiar with her work as well. Nothing. Okay, great. Well, we're going to jump right into a close reading exercise. So for those of you who are new to narrative medicine, how a workshop typically works, we jump right into a close reading. We do a good, 45 minutes to an hour of close reading together of a poem, which sounds like a daunting task at first. I assure you it's not. By the time we get to that time, I will be straining to move us on to the next thing because we will all still want to keep going. And then we're going to move into a little bit of reflective writing that'll help us integrate everything that we've been discussing about the poem. So without further ado, here is our winter wonderland. I'd love to have a newcomer to our class read Snowy Night for us. So Maha or Jason, do you mind? Or Alexandra, do you mind
I can do
reading
it.
Snowy Night? Wonderful, thank you.
Last night, an owl in the blue dark tossed an indeterminate number of carefully shaped sounds into the world in which, a quarter of a mile away, I happened to be standing. I couldn't tell which one it was, the bard or the great horned ship of the air. It was that distant. But anyway, aren't there moments that are better than knowing something and sweeter? Snow was falling, so much like stars, filling the dark trees that one could easily imagine. Its reason for being was nothing more than prettiness. I suppose if this were someone else's story, they would have insisted on knowing whatever is knowable, would have hurried over the fields to name it, the owl, I mean. But it's mine, the poem of night, and I just stood there, listening and holding out my hands to the soft glitter falling through the air. I love this world, but not for its answers, and I wish good luck to the owl, whatever its name, and I wish great welcome to the snow, whatever its severe and comfortless and beautiful meaning.
Thank you so much, Maha. I'm going to ask one more person to read it through. It could be old friend or newcomer. And this time, as this next person reads, I want us all to be looking for words or phrases that are calling to our attention. Anything that you find interesting or challenging or insightful, something that just pulls at your attention. And I want you to write it in the chat box. You can write it as it comes up or after they're finished. Who would like to read next?
Fine by me.
Please, thank you.
Last night, an owl in the blue dark tossed an indeterminate number of carefully shaped sounds into the world in which, a quarter of a mile away, I happened to be standing. I couldn't tell which one it was, the bard or the great horned ship of the air. It was that distant, but anyway, aren't there moments that are better than knowing something and sweeter? Snow was falling, so much like stars, filling the dark trees that one could easily imagine. Its reason for being, its reason for being was nothing more than prettiness. I suppose if this were someone else's story, they would have insisted on knowing whatever is knowable, would have hurried over the fields to name it, the owl, I mean, but it's mine, this poem of the night. And I just stood there, listening and holding out. My hands to the soft glitter falling through the air. I love this world, but not for its answers. And I wish good luck to the owl, whatever its name. And I wish great welcome to the snow, whatever its severe and comfortless and beautiful meaning.
Oh, thank you so much, Jason. Great readings. So take a moment and pop some things in the chat box that call your attention here. And as we're waiting for a few more responses, I'd also like to ask you guys, and you can just call this one right out. You don't need to write it in the chat box. What is literally happening here? Not metaphorically, just literally. What is the, I guess, plot, for lack of a better term? What is the plot of Snowy Night?
think it's also wondering.
Wondering? Wondering about what?
Wondering what's out there.
Wondering what's out there. Yeah, literally the owl. Yeah. And then maybe metaphorically wondering about other things too, right? Yeah. Great. Yeah, I agree. What else? Any other plot points here? Just literally happening?
Just literally somebody at night listening to an owl as the
Mhm.
snow falls.
Yeah. Yeah, the snow is falling. Yeah. Somebody at night listening to an owl while the snow falls.
It's also, for me, it's there's a little bit of plot line in what do I know and what do I not know? What can be measured and what cannot? What's the name of that owl? Does it matter? It's an indeterminate number of sounds, but they're carefully shaped. I'm a quarter of a mile away. That's a specific distance. There's a lot of measuring, I think. Is it glitter? Is it snow? Is it severe? Is it comfortless?
Oh, Kate, taking us home. I love it. What can be measured? What cannot be? Yeah, those are the driving questions of this poem. Anybody else see some driving questions kind of bubbling in the background? We've got what can be measured, what cannot be. Anything, any other? We started talking a little bit about what is out there. What else? What other questions are bubbling in this poem?
As in literally or my interpretation?
Either one. Either one.
I'm just kind of wondering, perhaps just how it's worded. This listening and holding out, right? To continue on, it's this listening and holding out my hands, but it just stops there at holding out.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I'm kind of, what are we holding out for?
Ooh, okay. What are we holding out for? Right. Let's see if that question comes up later in our discussion as we really sink in. I like that. Great. So now let's move to some of the images that you guys have noticed here. Daniel notices, aren't there moments that are better than knowing something? Well, that's a literal question too. We could add that one to our list. Aren't there moments that are better than knowing something and sweeter? So this, for me, harkens back to Kate's question about measurement, but there's a little bit of a tone of preference for the things that can't be measured. Aren't there moments that are better and sweeter than knowing? And maybe we get a little bit of a glimpse here. Daniel also noticed the severe and comfortless and beautiful meaning. Why those three adjectives, do you guys think? Why comfortless?
So I'm not an English native, but severe can be both a negative word and it can also be kind of an exaggeration is not the word, right? But I can have a severe hunger, right?
Yes.
As an example.
Like extreme.
Yeah, so the way I read it is comfortless and beautiful are kind of two opposites, and severe is either a negative thing or it's a sorry, I forgot the word, but the exaggeration of comfortless and the exaggeration of beautiful. That makes sense.
Yeah, so this is a kind of a world of extremes. Beautiful, comfortless, and then severe, which could kind of be either one. Is that what is? Go ahead.
I was gonna say, just kind of like this, typically the snow, we're thinking about severe and probably cold, and we're getting wet, because of the snow itself, and how that can be deemed as kind of comfortless. But I'm kind of laughing a little bit on the inside because I met Jason in Poland as we were doing a Wim Hof expedition in the cold. this comfortless was actually comfortable and yet beautiful. And so I think that's where she's coming from, but I look at it from a different aspect as well.
Ooh, I like that a lot. Can you tell us more about why it was comfortless but beautiful?
You know, getting into cold water is definitely something people just don't like, right? It's very uncomfortable. It's very threatening for the body itself, especially if you're not careful with being in there too long, hypothermic and things of that nature. But typically just nobody, we seek pleasure, right? We don't typically seek, you know, to put ourselves in discomfort. And so this is where there's that discomfort aspect. But by kind of overcoming that adversity and kind of testing yourself and actually realizing that you kind of become comforted by it, not in any kind of masochistic way, but you're kind of comforted by the cold. You start feeling warmer, you feel empowered.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it's learning to be with the discomfort that actually brings the comfort. The fact that you can. I like that. My husband is a big fan of ice, of the plunges. Oh, I don't know how you guys do it. Give me a sauna all day, but I can't do it. But he says the same thing, that there's something about showing yourself that you can do this thing. Do you see that anywhere here in the poem? That similar experience of overcoming, or is there something different here?
For me, there's a little bit of overcoming in this narrator's awareness or acknowledgement that some other teller of this story would have insisted on knowing whatever is knowable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But for this speaker, she's pushing past that to appreciate kind of the mystery of the snow and the owl. The owl has shaped these careful sounds, but who knows what they mean. The snow is whatever it is, but her appreciation of it is that it's soft glitter falling through the air.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess there's some overcoming in that sense of, I could be that other kind of person, but I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
I'm this kind of person. And the impressions of things are what matter to me more than the knowing, the naming, the cataloging, the knowing.
Mm-hmm. I like that, both that, oh, go ahead.
I was gonna, yeah, just to kind of piggyback off that a little bit, just thinking
Please.
about the world that we live in now, and you know, we have these devices that are tethered to us constantly. And so we want to know, we're looking things up, what owl would be in this area, looking up at the constellations of the sky, you know, looking at, oh, what's the actual temperature out right now? How long is it going to, like, we have to know these things. And she's kind of like this overcoming of, I don't need to. I'm going to just be present and allow whatever is happening to just happen. So she's really dissociating from this, you know, information technology driven world that we live in, although perhaps when this was written, that really wasn't the case.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm
there's,
back on oh, sorry,
Mhm.
go ahead, Julia.
Please, no.
Well, I'm back on an earlier question that you asked that maybe connects to this one. I'm not sure, but I'm very interested in the second column, the second stanza, over the fields, to name it. And then she says, the owl, because she's been talking about the snow for a little while. But the owl was what could not be named. She
Mhm.
wasn't particularly interested in locking it down into a name. She just called it the ship of the air, which is such a gorgeous, unexpected association.
Mhm.
What am I wanting to say here? So, at the top of that column, the stanza that begins, then prettiness, and then the poem ends with and beautiful meaning. I know that's what you were asking about, the adjectives severe, comfortless, and beautiful. That I don't know, there's just such a pervasive sense of appreciation of mystery and the things we can't know or don't know. I love that owls they emit these sounds which sound so intentional and carefully shaped, But what do they mean? And I can take those last adjectives, severe and comfortless, to apply also to the sound of the owl's vocalizations.
Mhm.
And at the same time, whatever their meaning is, which I may never know, there's just a irrefutable beauty to it. So
Mhm.
earlier in the poem, it says, as if there was nothing more than prettiness, almost as though beauty is dismissible or weightless. It has no value. But by the end, that's where she lands, that it's the beauty of it, the beautiful meaning, even if we can't break the code of that
Mhm.
meaning, it's still beautiful. I think that's what I'm
Mhm.
trying to say.
Yeah. Yeah. And you guys are really helping me kind of circle around what I was trying to I feel like just the same way Kate had that kind of toggling back and forth between what can be measured and what can't be. I felt a similar toggling between what is mine and what is not mine, you know, and you guys are helping me understand that a little bit more because we open with this world that is not mine, this world that is really the owls, you know, or at least a language that is the owls, you know, whatever story the owl is telling, we're not really privy to it besides just the beauty of the articulation. But then as the poem goes on, there's this statement, but it is mine. It's mine, this poem of the night. So there is something that the speaker is able to take from this, and it has to do with this severe and comfortless and beautiful meaning. And it kind of brings me back to poetry writ large, like according to Mary Oliver in this poem, or according to the speaker of this poem, I should say. What is a poem? But it's mine, this poem of the night. What does she get to own in this severe and comfortless and beautiful world?
She gets to own what she makes of it, whatever somebody else might say it is. This poem of whatever the night is, or the owl is, or the snow is, what's hers, what's mine, what belongs to any of us, is what we make from it. It's the poem. It's the made thing, which can only exist through the filter of each one of us.
Yeah, beautifully said.
Which maybe comes back to what Daniel, what you were saying, the holding out. I'm listening and I'm holding out. Yes, she's holding out her hands almost like a sieve or a bowl to catch it, but there's also the holding out. I'm going to wait. I'm just going to wait. I'm going to listen and wait, see what happens.
It's like what she owns is the memory of this experience where this owl is singing in this amphitheater, which is a quarter mile away. And I kind of have to laugh, like I said, with my connection with Jason, that's 400 meters, just in case you were curious. But she's holding out, right? This is hers. And so I'm holding out, I'm holding on to this moment still where this owl is speaking in this, this amphitheater, and I'm the one who gets to listen. This open amphitheater, right? It's just, and I'm the one who gets to hear it.
Mm. Does anybody read it differently when it comes to what we get to own?
So I kept circling back to the but it's mine, because for me it's more about it's also quite a statement to make, right? That you're describing something, you're giving something, you're giving the poem to someone else, but then you restate, make explicit again that it's yours. So for me, reading it, but it's mine. It's almost like you can look at it, but you can't have it.
Almost like she in turn is a kind of owl, like you can appreciate the beauty of the words here, but the experience is mine and you can't ever have that. I like that reading. Yeah, it seems like this, one of my teachers once said that all great poetry is really about poetry. I feel like something along that line is happening here. Like suddenly we're having a conversation about what poetry is and what it does. Or maybe another way of saying that is what language is and what language does. That it allows this experience of beauty and profundity without ever really promising true, complete understanding of meaning. Or if there is a meaning, as Kate says, it's up to us to make it ourselves. And that might be comforting, but it might also be comfortless in the sense that, you know, there's never a guarantee of our understanding. On the other hand, I'm going to play devil's advocate here. I also see a little bit in that last stanza that as she's welcoming this snow, whatever its severe and comfortless and beautiful meaning, she's also welcoming mystery and the things that she doesn't know about the world, and almost saying, so be it, the fact that I'll never know, that it's not really about me. Like, you know, for the bulk of this poem, so far we've been talking about how we make meaning and how it really comes back to, you know, who I am in this experience, the filter through which I sieve the world. But I see also an element here of the knowledge that the world is not all mine, and I'm going to allow that to be. Like, I'm not going to get it all. Not all of it is mine. What is mine is this poem, but the rest is not, and that's okay too. Does anybody else, does that make sense? Does anybody else see that too? It's kind of both sides of a similar coin, I guess. So if you had to land on a feeling that this poem gives you, since we landed on a few feelings at the end, severe, comfortless, beautiful, or an adjective of any kind, what feeling does it bring to you after having read this poem? How do you feel after having read it and close read it together?
I get a
Yes,
kind of, oh, go ahead, please, Jason.
No, sorry. Okay, so I don't know if feeling submissive would be like a correct translation to English, but it's kind of surrendering to. That's kind of the feeling that I get to it.
Surrender. Oh, that's such a great word. Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, I had surrender in my list. I also have, there's a kind of serenity or acceptance or welcome is there's a big openness to that word, welcome. This poem evokes for me a certain experience of snow that I've had that's not snow in the city when I've been hunkered, shoulders up, trying to protect myself against it or trying to get somewhere and force against it. There's a magical quality to a certain experience of snow that is what you were saying earlier, Julie, is just let it be, let it come. And I'm not sure I would have named it as I'm allowing it because it's beyond my control, but there is a kind of surrender or yielding to something that is bigger than me, that's going to happen whether I'm here or not. And that line, I wish great welcome to the snow. I know that feeling of come on down.
Yeah, and I love that you pointed to this word welcome, because I think acceptance is here too, but welcome is is bigger than acceptance for
Mm.
me. It's not just I mean, and not to say that acceptance is a passive thing. It sometimes takes, you know, the strongest willpower you can muster in life to accept something. But to welcome, I mean, that's that much bigger, I think. So I love that you pointed us back to that word, that it's a kind of a radical acceptance.
Yeah, and I actually just heard something else in it.
Mhm.
Welcome is what somebody who's already there extends to somebody or
Mm.
something that hasn't yet arrived. And there is a newness to this quality of snow.
Yes.
It's fresh.
Yes. Great. Any other words calling to you guys here? Adjectives, feelings?
One word, it's kind of, I think, probably already stated by the others, but in a different way, is this allowance, right? So it's
Mhm.
almost this pairing of welcoming and acceptance, right? Because you're still
Mhm.
there allowing this to happen. You're not trying to change anything, right? You're not salting streets, you're not running away, heating up, like you're just kind of allowing it to be.
Mhm. Yeah. Is there a recipe for that here? How to allow? How to welcome?
I think she kind of does that by claiming it, right? It's mine. I claim this.
Mhm.
And so I think that's an opening to where you'll be able to invite that for someone else. This is my home and I'm opening it to you, you know,
Mhm.
although this is going to come whether she wants it to or not.
This is just, oh, go ahead, please. Please, please, please.
If for me, the recipe for me is stand there, listen, hold out, and hold out my hands and love. I love this world.
Mhm.
That would be the recipe is stand,
Mhm.
Kate, listen, hold out your hands and love.
Beautifully said. Love this world, but not for its answers.
Mm.
And I guess by just by counterpoint, the recipe of how not to do it, if this were someone else's story, they would have insisted on knowing whatever is knowable, would have hurried over the fields to name it. So I guess by counterpoint, don't hurry, don't name, don't insist on knowing. Instead, stand, listen, hold out hands, love. And I love the idea of claiming it too. Claim something of it that's yours, something of your meaning, some meaning that you can make from this as yours. And this all lends itself so beautifully to a discussion of healthcare. I don't know if everybody here is affiliated with healthcare in any way, but all of us have bodies and all of us have experienced healthcare before. So I wonder how we could bring anything from this discussion back to a new understanding of what healthcare should be.
Mm.
Or
Well,
perhaps, go ahead, please.
the way you were just rereading the part of if this were someone else's story, that part of the poem, it almost sounds like she is saying it to herself. As in, if this were someone else, kind of like the old me, or my urge would have been normally to find out what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
And
think this is a little bit of narrative medicine of holding that space for somebody else, where this poem allows that as well. You know, we go to a healthcare provider and we're looking for answers, especially when we've been given none. And at times, though, we just need to feel heard. And so what I try to practice, what I kind of seen through this as well, is I'm not solving anything. I'm not giving you the answers. I'm just allowing you that space for you to share what you feel like you need to share, and for me to try to just not only understand, but have you feel like I understand.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, kind of a tutorial on listening. Yeah. And understanding in the sense that, you're never really going to 100% know the lived experience of someone else's reality. You're never going to, fully understand the meaning here, but it doesn't mean we should stop trying. Like there's real effort here in to be with and to listen, despite the fact that we don't fully understand, and there's no promise that we ever will, which seems to be a call to action for healthcare too. What's the danger there? What's the danger in, on one hand, assuming that we understand exactly what this owl is saying out there in the dark and exactly what kind it is, and on the other hand, metaphorically, what's the danger in believing that we completely understand someone else's lived experience of the world?
So understand, oh, sorry. Okay, so to me, understanding is something that happens on a rational level, right? So for example, me as a person, I can feel emotions or sense stuff going on in my body, but I'm not yet able to understand what's going on. And I don't think we have to. So I also have that in a lot of discussions with people, that they are worried about something, or they want to know the answer to why they are feeling stressed or whatever. And sometimes the answer is just, why do you need to know? It's just something that your body tells you, and it's up to you to not to understand it, but to do something with the information that it gives you, and treat it as a gift. So I don't know if that fully answers your question, but it's an interpretation that popped up in my mind just now.
Right. Yeah, why do you need to know? And I love how you also pull us back to the body here. Understanding is a rational process, and there's something happening in Snowy Night that's very embodied. And I love that you guys pointed out, both Daniel and Kate pointed to those lines, holding out, and then the line break to, oops, pay no attention. Pointed out the line break between holding out and my hands, that there is something very physical happening in that holding out and that listening space that brings us back to embodied experience. And that's often something that's missed in a kind of healthcare process too. We get so up in our heads that we've, as providers, I think, we don't bring our whole bodies to the task of being with and listening. And maybe we don't even notice what's really going on in someone else's body because we miss the forest for the trees of symptom and things that we check off on a box, So I think that's a great reminder, and also how to treat it as a gift, as you said.
This is, I'm reminded of something from my work experience, which I'm not a healthcare practitioner, but I taught English for many years to non-native speakers of English. And I was always amazed at how important it was to listen to what my students were telling me they didn't understand, because it really wasn't a question of what I knew about English. It was what do they need to know to bridge from their language to English. And I had a student who consistently would miss the third person S when he was writing. And so we would stop and we would go through, I speak, you speak, he sure it speaks. And he would say, oh yeah, I know that. And then sure enough, the S would disappear again when he spoke or wrote. And it turned out that It wasn't that he didn't understand the rule. It's that he would omit the S when the sentence contains somebody's name. John speaks, Mary speaks. And it's true, the grammar rule says he, she, or it. It doesn't say he, she, or it, John, or Mary. It never includes a person's name. And so he was quite literally following the rule.
Yeah.
And I'm not quite sure how to bridge that to what's going on here, but I think that's the soft, the John and Mary is the soft glitter,
Yeah.
and the he, she, or it is the knowable piece. And if he had not been able to tell me that, I would never have been able to expand the explanation to help him understand.
Great, Kate. Thank you. For me, what I'm pulling from the story is humility and curiosity. You know, that's the danger. When we think we know, and we don't leave space for mystery. We don't leave space for our own humility or our own curiosity to allow further learning to happen. There's and I'm gonna get this wrong, so don't quote me on this, but there's an initiative going on. One of the siblings of a Radio Lab podcaster. I listen to Radio Lab a lot. It's a great podcast if you ever want to check it out. They did they did a show where that featured the work of one of their siblings, where they're going into hospitals and they're trying to get people to wait. I believe it's something like 12 seconds before diagnosis. They just want doctors to wait 12 seconds and listen 12 seconds longer than they would have before diagnosis. And it's making radical change in healthcare. Just the extra 12 seconds that they would have stopped to give diagnosis, just to listen that much longer, leaving more space, gives them more information, gives them more curiosity, and creates at least space for acceptance of their unknowingness to lead to new knowledge. So it has real material, practical applications. I think in a professional sense and in a personal sense. You know, if we all decided to be 12 seconds more curious, how much more would we learn about the world? Thank you for that story, Kate. Any last thoughts on Snowy Night or Mary Oliver, or on welcome and acceptance and humility before we move on? Any last thoughts?
I think this is just a good little lesson, or perhaps a reminder of when we just go to embark on vacations, or meeting up with a old friend, or sometimes even just being with our own children if we have those, or somebody. And it's just, we don't have to have the answer. We don't need to solve anything. We just need to just be present in that moment, listening to that owl, holding the hands out, feeling for the snow.
Yeah.
Really all we have to do at times.
Beautiful. Thank you, Daniel.
Yeah, what I find. Oh, sorry.
Please.
Yeah, what I also find very interesting is how many different interpretations there are for even like one single word or line. And that's kind of how I would perceive somebody else talking about something. The way I perceive it, I mean, they perceive it probably a way completely different. I mean, this poem itself, there are probably multiple interpretations that we didn't even discuss.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, I just thought that was very interesting.
Great. Thank you so much. Yeah. And that is one of the hallmarks of narrative medicine work, or at least one of its biggest goals, is to teach how there's how much space there is for multiple meanings to coexist. Like a poem, for example. I think one of the things that makes this a poem, according to the speaker of Snowy Night, is that there's mystery involved. There's a lot of different possibilities that she knows that she's never going to put a pin in. And I think embracing the kind of poetry of medical care and healthcare can allow us that space for multiple meanings to coexist. And I think in that space where there's lots of possibility, we actually become more effective healthcare providers, and we actually become more human healthcare providers too, because it takes a lot of stress off of us too, to have to be the ones who know and the ones who can fix. Yeah, thank you for that point. Really, really well said. All right, you guys ready to move on to some writing? Cool. Everybody bring out a piece of paper or a notepad on your laptop. I'm going to set a timer for 5 minutes. I'm about to give you a prompt. For those of us who are new to this practice, after you read the prompt, just free write for 5 minutes and don't try to write well. That's the only advice I have for you. Just get words on the page. Treat this like an experiment, find out what you already know. All right, I'll give you a little 30-minute heads up before we're almost done. Here is our prompt today. Write about a moment that was better than knowing something and sweeter. I'm going to put myself on mute. I invite you to do the same if you think there might be sounds in the background. start to wind up your last thought or sentence. When you're done, you can signal you're done by just looking up in your camera. All right, wherever you are, go ahead and put your pencils down, even if you're in the middle. Sometimes when you're thinking you're finished with something, thinking you're finishing something and you have to stop, it ends at the perfect place. So just go ahead and finish wherever you are. All right, a little bit of etiquette for reading and sharing. You never have to share if you don't want to. Instead of sharing, I would just invite you to talk about the experience of writing this. But you never have to share what you've written. If you're really leaning into the experiment of writing, it might go someplace you don't expect it to, and maybe that place is not something you'd like to share with others. So that's totally fine. We have 30 minutes. I'm going to be bold. I know this is ambitious, but instead of breaking out into dyads or triads, I'm going to keep us all in one big plenary group, and we're going to have 5 minutes per person. So I'm going to set a timer for 5 minutes per person to share either what they've written or about the experience of having written it. And then we are all going to practice reflecting back to them with the same generosity and attention to detail that we gave Mary Oliver. Little note for listeners, if as you're listening, write down words and phrases that call your attention, same sort of thing that we did with the poem. If something traumatic comes up, instead of saying, oh my God, I'm so sorry that happened to you, or pressing for more information, still treat this as an artwork. You know, talk about the words or phrases you noticed there, how they impacted you, where you felt them in your body. That way we keep our attention on the words on the page. Does that all make sense to everybody? Oh, and of course, everything shared here stays here. Can I get a thumbs up from everyone? Yeah. And Maha and Alexandra, if you can just give me a thumbs up in the chat box, or just say okay in the chat box, or say it out loud, either one. Yeah. Great. Thank you, Maha. And Alexandra, thank you. I'm so glad. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay. Who would like to share first? Daniel. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Whenever you're ready.
Figured I would just throw it out there so nobody else has to sit in silence and wonder if they're going to be.
No, we're all grateful. Thank you so much.
The expectation, later, the summoning. Hurl at me your frigid temperatures, Arctic winds, a man's mettle on the mountaintop, a fear of failure. Can I actually overcome this? Perhaps I couldn't. That chance did not come as anticipated. Showered with the sun, bright face of a friend. Could I have done it? It doesn't matter. The friendship was more than the triumph.
Thank you so much. 1 second. All right. Can you read it one more time? And can you read it just a little bit more slowly?
Okay. I always get all fired up at times.
Perfect.
The expectation, later the summoning. Hurl at me your frigid temperatures and Arctic winds. A man's mettle on the mountaintop, a fear of failure. Can I actually overcome this? Perhaps I couldn't. That chance did not come as anticipated. Showered with the sun, bright face of a friend. Could I have done it? It doesn't matter. The friendship was worth more than the triumph.
Worth more than a try. Great. All right. What are you guys noticing here? Just
I'll
call it
jump
out loud.
in. Yeah. I was really taken by, there's an adventure spirit to it. even though I don't know exactly what's going on, and it can be taken literally or figuratively. But I heard it a little bit almost as myth. I could see shields and spears and men trying to, against the elements. But it happened for me. The way it happened technically was there's a kind of in the phrasings, there's something kind of large and abstract and conceptual, like expectation, summoning, frigid conditions, man's metal, failure, overcoming. Even the bright face of a friend was not particular to that friend or what the features of that face. It was the generic kind of bright face of a friend, friendship and triumph. So there's something very much, what's his name, White Fang. Anyway,
Jack
human
London.
being, yeah, it's very Jack London kind of, or even the Iliad and the Odyssey,
Yeah.
man and the elements. I was really taken with it.
Mm-hmm. For me, the word summoning is big here. There's a summoning happening, I think, in multiple levels. Like it starts with an expectation, which seems internal, like the speaker's own expectation. But then there's a summoning that's bigger than the speaker. It's like the summoning of these Arctic winds and frigid temperatures of nature, in general. There's a summoning of what it is to be a man, right? The man's metal on the mountaintop. There's a summing of friendship and doing it together and triumph, and a really, I guess, a summoning into the speaker's self through this experience. And yet at the same time, it really lands in this place of friendship. This is not a solitary poem. Like this is happening, at least in the latter half, with this friend, the bright face of the friend, and the friendship was worth more than the triumph. So maybe it starts in a solitary space and it kind of ends in this relational space. Maybe the summoning is to this relationship. But I felt the summoning, and I felt the summoning in every sense of that word, as kind of summoning as a little bit archaic, a little ritual, a little magical, I felt all of those things here. Like a trial by fire, but by Arctic winds. What else did you guys notice?
Yeah, the main sentences that popped out at me is, I think it was already mentioned, but a man's metal at the mountaintop. But then the line after that, the fear of failure. So even though I'm still trying to interpret what the poem was. I think that fear of failure is the central theme in that, and how he I can't remember the exact last line, but it was, friendship came into the sentence. So I'm assuming that like could you just read the last two lines again, if you don't mind?
Oops, sorry.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. The friendship was worth more than the triumph.
Right. So yeah. So like what I get from that is basically the obstacles one had to go through, the reward, it's greater in the end than all the stuff that led up to whatever reward was achieved in the end, which was friendship. So it was all worth it in the end. That's what I interpret off of that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it starts as something focused externally, and it ends on something internally. So there's also a shift there.
Mm-hmm. Great.
But I struggled to reflect on it because I kind of have an idea what Daniel might be talking about. So yeah.
Great noticing. Starts in this like outer world and it lands in this inner space. Great. Normally when we have more time, we allow the reader to reflect back about their experience of being listened to and what they learned from it. We're going to save all that till the end. now. We're going to go through everybody's piece, and then we'll have time for each person to share something they learned, either from listening or from listening to other people's work or having it reflected back to them. So let's go ahead and move on to the next speaker. Thank you for everyone's thoughts there. Who would like to read next or to share their experience next?
I can go for it.
Thanks, Maha.
When I consumed it, I was flabbergasted. Could a dish of this sort come out of a 4x5 oven? I asked the recipe. He said, I do not know. I asked the ingredients. He said, I do not know. I asked how long you cooked it. He said, I do not know. Till this day, I am with absolute uncertainty on how it was made. However, it is that uncertainty that brings me back there weekly.
Love it. Can you read it one more time, please? Oh, Maha, I think you're on mute. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Maha? Oh,
Sorry.
great. No worries.
When I consumed it, I was flabbergasted. Could a dish of this sort come out of the 4x5 oven? I asked the recipe. He said, I do not know. I asked the ingredients. He said, I do not know. I asked, how long did you cook it? He said, I do not know. Till this day, I have that same uncertainty, but it is that uncertainty that brings me back there weekly.
Great. Oh, this is a good one. All right. What did you guys think?
I'm going to button my lip. I have so much to say.
Me too.
It almost, for anybody who's seen it, right, reminds me of Kung Fu Panda, when the scroll is empty and there's nothing there, and then he's talking about the special ingredient to the soup, and like there is no special ingredient, it's just what it is. And so it's like it could perhaps just be something pretty common. Maybe it was good as it is, but then the fact that you don't know even more makes it that much more mysterious, right? And that's really what's kind of captivating you. And perhaps, I don't know if you've tried it again, or maybe you haven't, and maybe it was 8 years ago and you're still kind of thinking, well, I wish I knew what was in that. And so that memory perhaps becomes a little bit stronger than what that experience truly might have been like. So that's what I kind of start thinking of with this consuming and this uncertainty.
I love the word consuming because it has like a double meaning. Says the non-native English speaker, but I enjoyed that. And it was kind of funny when you read it the second time. It brought me back to when my grandma used to cook. When my grandma was still alive, she had this amazing gift of cooking food, then partially burning it, and then still making it taste amazingly. And then my mom would get pissed off because she was like, "But your grandma cannot cook. How come you enjoy those dishes that she makes, and you don't fully appreciate my cooking skills?" Basically, it kind of brought me back to that, as in, what were the secret ingredients that made her cooking so special to me? And I also do not know. So I don't know why, but it really, maybe the kind of the simplicity of the subject, or the way you've written it, really allows me to fill it with my own interpretation. So I really enjoyed it.
Jason, I love the way that you said that, because it makes it a kind of parable, that it feels like a parable, that we all have our own stories that kind of fit with it in a way. Thank you for highlighting that. Yeah, great close reading.
Yeah, it did strike me a little bit like a parable, or a children's story, a fairy tale. There are always the three trials that the hero has to undergo, or the three questions that have to be answered. What was the recipe? I don't know. What were the ingredients? I don't know. How long did you cook it? I don't know. We never even know what the is.
Mhm.
I love that there was no description of the it, except that it was flabbergasting. So I love that there was no description. Was it sweet, salty, sour, spicy, crunchy, soupy? No idea. And I don't need to know. It was just flabbergasting. And the speaker is going to go back week after week.
Mhm.
It was humorous and very enchanting, like a children's story. I love that. Thank you so much for reading it. And the 4x5 oven.
Mhm.
Can start there.
Yeah, that's the only thing here that has detail to it is the oven itself. And it's well, no, I was about to say it's a tiny oven, but it's not. It's a normal oven. 4x5. Is that
Well, it's 4x5
spatial
what?
intelligence? Yeah, right.
I mean, it could be enormous. It could be little. Who knows? A
It's such a
4x5
great
oven. I don't
detail.
even know. Is it? Yeah, I don't
It's
really
such
know
a
what it
great
means.
detail. And somehow that too lends it a kind of beautiful mystery, the fact that we don't know. Really highlighting that the deliciousness of uncertainty in a lot of different ways. Really great. Any last thoughts on Maha's work?
No, but I think you just titled it, right? The deliciousness of uncertainty.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's great. All right. Who would like to read next?
Sure. Then I will have to switch to my other screen. 1 second. Yeah. We meet outside in 5 minutes. We'll go for a walk. A silent walk. My bare feet walk over the asphalt. My toes touch gravel, sand, and grass, sometimes snow. Not knowing where I'm going, and the first few minutes I'm wondering, where will we end up? I honor the silence, I look around. The big trees fern, providing comforting darkness, and I hear the sound of the water forcing itself through the river, beautiful, forceful, and also proud. Every step I take is like taking a step away from my mind and taking a step closer to my senses. I don't know where I'll end up, but I don't need to. It was all about the journey, so I took the jump.
How did you write a poem in 5 minutes? Beautiful, beautiful work. Would you mind reading it one more time?
Sure.
Thank you.
We meet outside in 5 minutes. We'll go for a walk, a silent walk. My bare feet walk over the asphalt. My toes touch gravel, sand, and grass, sometimes snow, not knowing where I'm going. The first few minutes, I'm wondering, where will we end up? I honor the silence. I look around. The big trees firm, providing comforting darkness. The sound of the water forcing itself through the river, beautiful, forceful, and proud. Every step I take is like taking a step away from my mind and taking a step closer to my senses. I don't know where I'll end up, but I don't need to. It was all about the journey, so I took the jump.
Great. All right, thoughts.
It's a very sensual experience to listen to what you wrote. The bare feet, the asphalt, the toes, the sand, the grass, the snow, darkness. So there's something for my eyes to look at. There's something for my body to feel. The water pushing itself, big trees providing the comforting darkness. And a very embodied experience of the natural world at the same time that there's this speculating mind moving through space and through the experience. It's a lovely balance of those two. So, and I love that the way to the more speculative question at the end was through tactile experience. We only arrive at that speculative question after having our toes on the gravel, the asphalt, is the snow, etc. It was a beautiful experience to take that walk. Thank you.
It's almost like I was there. The word, right, this description of the water itself, of this forceful and proud and beautiful, right, describing and what you're hearing, but yet it's as if you become that water at the very end, right? You're jumping, and it's unknown, perhaps you're jumping into something else, maybe you're jumping into the water, but you become forceful, proud, and beautiful at the end, right? So you become this water, is kind of what I'm kind of gathering from the speaker.
Yeah, like Daniel, I see the jump as literal and metaphorical. You know, there's a jump into that kind of, as Daniel already said, you know, the beautiful, the forceful, the proud that somehow becomes the speaker through the jump. I also feel very invited into this very sensual experience. After having heard it a couple of times, I realized that the first voice is probably someone else's. The "we meet outside in 5 minutes, we're going for a walk, a silent walk." But the first time that I heard it as an invitation, like a come along. You know, we're meeting outside in 5 minutes, we're going for a walk. And I kind of felt through all of that very sensory embodied detail, the invitation to feel in my body what the speaker felt in his. So I feel very welcomed, very invited into this space. I also feel like there's a rewinding happening here, like asphalt to gravel to sand to grass to snow. Like there's a kind of retreat into, like, away from the man-made world into this more natural space, which, you know, I guess works on metaphorical and literal levels as well, like a retreat into something at the core of this speaker, where he's able to take this jump in this, what strikes me as very authentic space. Yeah, and I love the there's a little bit of a recipe on how to do that here too. You know, forget where you're going to end up. You know, honor silence, look around, be comforted by darkness and the sound of water, and then don't know where you'll end up, and you don't need to. Just take the jump. Take the jump. You know, I found a little I don't know, a little recipe here too that I just loved. You definitely did not pay attention to the instructions though. This is good writing. So, yeah, the initial instructions were don't worry about writing well. This is very good writing, and I hope that you continue with this. Maybe share it with others. It's really beautiful.
Thank you. Wow.
Any last thoughts on Jason's? I'm going to call it a poem, on Jason's poem. Great. All right. Who'd like to read next?
I think it's moi. We lost Alexandra, right?
I think Alexandra's
Yeah.
here in the background because she said okay earlier. So we'll hope that she's around to read after this.
It looked like she left.
Oh, she did? Oh, her.
That she left.
Oh, you're right. You're right. Oh, darn. Okay. All right. Great. Thank you, Kate.
Okay. So what was it? A moment that's better than knowing, and something and sweeter. Okay. The moment when in that song, the singer, inarticulate and shy in interviews, breaks from the musical patterns he's established, the rhythmic pattern, the chord progressions, the repetitions, and wings upward and outward on an updraft of grief and pain and love and longing that changes everything that has happened in the song up to that moment. And your throat cannot help but seize up, and your heart cannot help but break, and your vision blurs, and it's no longer just a song or a poem to an owl on a snowy night, but it's all poems and all owls and all snowy nights. And you are at once a microdot, the only living thing against a landscape of eternity, and at the same time delivered wholly and completely into your singular embodied human self by his ferociously felt example.
Oh,
Mhm.
man. Thank you, Kate. Would you mind reading again a little bit more slowly?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
I'm thinking about the moment when in that song, the singer, inarticulate and shy in interviews, breaks from the musical patterns that he has established, the rhythmic pattern, the chord progressions, the repetitions, and he wings upward and outward on an updraft of grief and pain and love and longing that changes everything that has happened in the song up to that moment. And your throat cannot help but seize up, and your heart cannot help but break, and your vision blurs, and it's no longer just a song or a poem to an owl on a snowy night, but it is all poems and all owls and all snowy nights. And you are at once a microdot, the only living thing against a landscape of eternity. And at the same time, you are delivered wholly and completely into your singular embodied human self by his ferociously felt example.
I feel like I had the same experience that the speaker had listening to the singer, listening to the writing of this speaker. Simply beautiful.
Mm.
Who would like to start?
This feels like life, and things are perhaps going wonderfully, and then this grief and pain and love and longing, this heartbreak, and the description of these words puts you in what that's like. Most of us, I think, have kind of experienced something similar at one point. And then this microdot versus eternity, like, what does it really matter that I'm experiencing when we look at the vastness of everything? And yet this, right, ferociously felt example, humanizes you. And so, although this external, how vast, right? This is huge, and we're this microdot, but yet this is truly very impactful, right? It's very meaningful to that microdot. And it just sings to me of life, right? It is just this weaving of, things that just kind of go on at some point. It just makes me think, right? At some point, we are going to die. Somebody's going to die. And yeah, I mean, kind of like what Julia said, it really kind of places you there, perhaps beside the speaker, listening to this person sing.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
It's almost like, yeah, I got a good taste of it my first visit when I went to New Orleans, and just some of I forget how they call that, whatever, that breakout of jazz, right? And they're just kind of going off. And so perhaps like we're playing the song, and then they just go off, and it's like there's the story that needs to be told.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
So I wrote down first. I wrote down whirlwind as in a note because I felt like you were sweeping me off my feet as well. So
Mm.
it starts like a really small thing, just this singer singing, and then it gets bigger and it's like a gust of wind, and then it gets bigger and bigger, and then all of a sudden it's a whirlwind, and then it's kind of like a tempest, and it gets like this enormous thing, and then you just let it resolve or disappear or dissipate. I don't know the right word for it, into
Mm.
into nothing. Uh, so for me, it's like it's building, like gradually building a lot of energy, and then all of a sudden it's just gone, and it kind of feels peaceful.
Mm.
I don't even know where to begin here. I mean, so yes, to everything that Jason has just said, I feel that same updraft, that swelling, the movement into tempest and then deliverance at the end that strikes me very much as very similar to, a song. I love that it begins in this place of being inarticulate, not being able to communicate, and yet the profundity of communication is so deep as it goes on, and it's probably because of that schism that makes it so profound.
Mm.
There's something, it's the shock of it, it's the change in the pattern, it's the fact that everything that's happened up into this moment is different from what is happening now, that makes it so profound. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the Oliver poem, that maybe what's so beautiful about this moment is its inarticulability.
Mm.
Uh,
Mm.
the two things kind of hinge on each other, and then in a very similar way at the end, you've got this hinge in the speaker, that suddenly they're just a micro dot, the only living thing in a landscape of eternity, which feels so very alone and yeah, alone. And then on the other hand, delivered wholly and singly into themselves by another, become more themselves through relationship, holding both of those things at the same time, both of them true. I mean, it's, talk about profound.
Mm.
And I love the line, all poems and all owls and all snowy nights, that this poem is kind of reaching for something so much bigger than itself. There's a reaching here. That's just gorgeous. Reaching of the voice, the reaching of the speaker toward the singer. Ah, simply beautiful work, Kate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any last thoughts on Kate's work? Great.
I think also
Mm.
I did not have too many thoughts when she was reading it, and I think that's also a very good thing.
Great point.
Mm.
Yeah, this is in the body for sure.
Mm.
A felt thing. All right, friends, I know we're already 5 over time, so I hope we can each of us just say one quick thing about what we learned from listening to, reflections on our work or learn from each other's stories. One thing that we're going to be taking home from this workshop.
The sweetness and surprise in things that we don't necessarily know.
Great. Thank you.
I know we're not writing for comparison, but right, kind of listening to Kate, and this is my first time. I'm like, man, I could probably step my game up. Like, yeah.
She's good like that, huh?
Yeah.
You've got pretty good game though. I don't know. You're quite a
I
writer.
was going to say, I beg to differ. There are 5 windows here for a reason.
No, but I would have to agree. Like, I think just that this confirming the realization of the power of just the experience and just allowing it to be,
Right.
or the welcoming of that experience.
I'm going to borrow the word deliverance and say, I'm taking home the surprise and the knowledge that others can deliver us to ourselves.
I think I've 2 things. So the one is more on the subject matter in that sense. That even though you can have a experience and the experience will be gone in a bit, you can still take it with you. And I think the other thing is that I've not to blow, what's the word? Blow my own horn, toot my own horn. But I think I'm sufficiently proficient with English. But then when it goes to this level, I kind of struggle because I want to find the right words and I want to explain myself. But there's like this Dutch layer that goes over it before I'm able to find the English words, whatever. But then I have a 5-minute writing prompt and I don't have the time to dive into that. So I just need to do it. So I'm also taking that away from today. So just do it.
I don't want to discount your experience, but just from my perspective, I would have never thought that you had any struggles because you had beautiful, very, I mean, no grammar issues or anything. Like, your English seems gorgeous. So thank you for sharing it with us.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Is that everybody? Maha? Maha, did you share already? Would you like to? You don't have to if you don't want to. All right. No worries. Thank you guys so much. This was so fun. I love having new folks on. It was such a pleasure to have your fresh voices here. I feel like I learned so much during this workshop today from everybody. Thank you, thank you for attending. And come back again next month. We do this every month. We feature a different artist, not always poetry, often is. But sometimes we look at visual art or other things as well. So please come back and do some close reading and reflective writing with us. We'd love to have you back. And happy January.
Thank you for curating a beautiful workshop, Julia.
Oh, thank you.
Always. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Kate. Hope to see you soon, honey.
Thank you, everyone. Ciao.
Bye.